This is All India Radio. In the program Spotlight, now we bring you a discussion on Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat. The participants are Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and AIR correspondent Renu Kataria.
Prime Minister Narendra Modi said India will become self-reliant only when the farmers and villagers are empowered. Addressing the nation in his Mann Ki Baat program, Mr. Modi said the agricultural sector of the country, farmers and villagers are the very basis of Atmanirbhar Bharat. He said even in this hour of crisis, agricultural sector has shown its resilience. He added that in the recent past, farmers have liberated themselves from many restrictions and tried to break free from many myths. Mr. Tandon, the Prime Minister referred to taking of fruits and vegetables out of APMC. How will this help the farmers across the nation?
The Prime Minister actually paid tributes to India's agriculture sector and our farmers. He said even during the pandemic, the agriculture sector has shown remarkable achievement. Our farmers have done wonders, and they are the ones who are moving forward to making India an Atmanirbhar Bharat. Because India can become Atmanirbhar Bharat only if the agriculture sector helps. And this is exactly what our farmers have done through new innovation in agriculture and also enhancing their produce. And then he talked of a farmer from Haryana. Then he said since the fruits and vegetables have been taken out of the APMC, and now farmers with their enhanced produce are now taking their fruits and vegetables directly to the mandis using their own transport, and they are even like baby corn, things like that, they are supplying directly to hotels. So in fact 60 farmers living in the same Sonipat village now got a revenue of about 10 to 12 lakhs per acre. That is their profit from selling vegetables alone. So the agriculture produce, if with the enhanced production, with the innovative techniques, and also farmers coming together, making societies or establishing their own mandis and even setting up cooperatives, they are now directly selling vegetables and fruits, and that is enhancing their income. And then he gave the example of the farmers in Maharashtra, where Pune and Mumbai, 70 villages, 4,500 farmers have now set up their own weekly bazaar. Then he also talked about the farmers in Tamil Nadu. They are also setting up their own produce company. So a group of farmers in Lucknow, and 100 million tons vegetables are now being sold in the mandis of Lucknow without any middlemen. So when middlemen are no longer there, the farmers all over the country are now getting the benefit of selling their produce at their own cost, whatever cost they want, and that is the real benefit of this act. And unfortunately, if I may say so, farmers are being misled by certain vested interests. Prime Minister gave the example of a farmer in Banaskantha in Gujarat, and through his innovation, drip irrigation, he has not only cleared his debt, he's now making profit because all his potato produce is being sold by him directly to the market. So he gave a quite lot of emphasis on the farm production, agriculture sector, and modernization, new innovation. Then he also gave the example of a woman in Manipur and things like that. So all the emphasis on agriculture sector helping India Atmanirbhar Bharat was the theme of Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat today.
Sir, the Prime Minister talked about the impact of COVID-19 in our daily lives and how the pandemic has changed the face of social family gatherings, saying that the coronavirus crisis period has served in fostering bonding among family members, bringing them even closer. He also focused on storytelling, saying that history of stories is as ancient as human civilization itself in India. There has been a rich tradition of storytelling. We are also proud to be denizens of a land that nurtured tradition of Hitopadesha and Panchatantra. What is your take on this, sir?
Prime Minister said the corona pandemic has brought the families together. In fact, within the family also the family members closer to each other. And one of the reasons why now a family has become a nucleus family is because the elderly in the family are telling stories, sharing jokes with children, and they are keeping the children not only busy, entertaining them also, but at the same time they are also enhancing their knowledge. of India's tradition, India's culture, as you said, in Panchatantra, Hitopadesha, the stories about the birds and animals and Lokatha. All these things have been part of India's tradition and culture, scientific science fiction stories, and then he gave the example of Lokatha in Tamil Nadu and Kerala, and many people in this respect are doing a great job. And then he talked to some of the storytellers across the country in many parts of in different states. In fact, one story was narrated to him, which referred to Krishnadeva of Vijayanagaram and the Tenali Rama stories. And the entire story was actually narrated by that woman who is heading that Bangalore, I think Aparna Atre. And the Prime Minister not only spoke to him, that the Bengali Storytelling Society, they participated in that storytelling episode, which the Prime Minister very interestingly, and he said that today you are talking about particular story which refers to the food, and today happens to be the Ocean Week. And he said the stories should be about human emotions and the valor of our tradition, historic, scientific fiction. And he said even on the life of Mahatma Gandhi, when we are celebrating 75th year of our independence, the storytellers must promote the freedom struggle from 1857 to 1947 and the sacrifices of our freedom fighters. All these things should become part of our life. So storytelling is now so important for the children to know about our past, our heritage, our cultural heritage, and the sacrifices which our freedom fighters have made. So every member of the family should, take upon himself at least one story a week, and that will help our children in that process. The new generation will also learn about our past.
Sir, the Prime Minister also said that he wanted to take us back to Shaheed Bhagat Singh and the massacre in the Jallianwala Bagh. The Prime Minister paid tributes to Shaheed Bhagat Singh, saying that the younger generation should take inspiration from him, his philosophy and his teachings, which are still relevant today. What do you have to say on this, sir?
After discussing all these issues, he said, I want to take my listener to 101 years back in 1919, when massacre of Indians by the British rulers in Jallianwala Bagh took place. Agitated the younger generation at that time, and 23-year-old Shaheed Bhagat Singh, and he took upon himself to take on the British Empire. And in fact, the British Empire was really rattled the way youths, particularly the revolutionaries, came forward. And so he paid tribute to Shaheed Bhagat Singh. He said he took inspiration from Lala Lajpat Rai, Chandrasekhar Azad, and his own colleagues like Sukhdev and Rajguru. He said Bhagat Singh was not only a revolutionary, he was a thinker and he was a learned person, but his courage. Bhagat Singh believed in teamwork, and all these things the younger generation should take inspiration, and that would be the real tribute to that great Indian who sacrificed his life. And in that context, Prime Minister also referred to the surgical strike by our Jawan, and he said that they ensured victory. So we must remember the valor of our Jawans, and it changed the landscape as far as the situation on the border is concerned, terrorist camps are concerned. So fight against terrorism, which our Jawans are continuing even today, he said, that makes all of us proud, and he paid tribute to those Jawans who led the surgical strikes.
Sir, also about Mahatma Gandhi's thoughts and ideas which are more relevant now than earlier, which the Prime Minister talked about. The economic principles of Mahatma Gandhi, if we would have been able to understand their spirit, grasp it and practically implement them, then the Atmanirbhar Bharat Abhiyan would not have been needed today. So what do you have to say on that?
Yes, the Prime Minister said in the coming days we will be remembering and paying tributes to some of our great sons of India. And October 2nd happens to be the birth anniversary of Mahatma Gandhi. And he said Mahatma Gandhi's teachings are relevant even today. And he said Mahatma Gandhi's philosophy, the economic thinking, the welfare of the poorest, and that is exactly inspiring us to talk about Atmanirbhar Bharat. Because Mahatma Gandhi always believed that if we can serve the Daridra Narayan, the man, the poorest in the line, and also the economic thinking of Mahatma Gandhi, which he had outlined in his philosophy, actually leads to what we are now talking about, Atmanirbhar Bharat. And he said, 2nd of October, we also will be paying tribute to Lal Bahadur Shastri and his simplicity. That is what really inspired all of us today. And in that same tone, he said that in the coming days, on the 11th of October, we will be remembering and paying tributes to Bharat Ratna Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan and Bharat Ratna Nanaji Deshmukh, and both of them were inspiring leaders. In fact, narrated one instance when at a rally in Patna, when there was an attack on Jayaprakash Narayan, and Nanaji Deshmukh took that attack on himself to save the life of Loknayak Jayaprakash Narayan. And on 12th of October, Prime Minister said, we will be paying tribute birth centenary year of Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia. He said she was a mother figure for his generation in the BJP, and she was a very inspiring leader, and he gave an example that when he was participating in the march from Kanyakumari to Kashmir, and when they were in Shivpuri, they reached in midnight, it was extreme winter, and around 2 a.m. there was a knock on his door, and he saw Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia carrying a glass of hot milk with haldi for him. And it was not only for him, he said, for all the participants. He said that was the kindness of a mother which Rajmata Vijayaraje Scindia inspired all of us.
Sir, the latest edition of Mann Ki Baat program comes a day after the Prime Minister addressed the United Nations General Assembly, in which he laid out India's priorities in the global setup, along with assuring its cooperation in dealing with the coronavirus pandemic. So, what do you have to say about the talk of the Prime Minister, and also his saying that India is now included in the decision-making process with the global body?
Prime Minister's address on the 75th anniversary of United Nations was very candid, forthright, and it was a very clear message we sent across to the entire world, and particularly the developed countries who are dominating and monopolizing the United Nations Security Council. He said a lot of things have changed in the last 75 years, and today we are in 21st century, and we have different challenges. So he said the big question is whether the UN is still relevant today in the present scenario. He said in the last 75 years, things have changed. There may not be a third world war, but there have been so many wars, there have been so many terrorist attacks, there have been bloodbath, people have lost life, and children also have lost life. So isn't the need for introspection for the world body? And then he said, how long India, which has been playing such an important role in the global affairs, will wait for its role to play in the decision-making process of the United Nations? That means, well, India deserves a permanent seat on the UN Security Council. And unfortunately, nothing is happening, and no forward movement is visible, and Indian people are getting frustrated, they are worried, although they still have a lot of respect for the human body. But the process of reform, we have been waiting for long. How long India is going to wait? It must be taken to a logical conclusion. And that kind of a very frank, forthright assertion at the World Forum, I think it was unprecedented. I have not seen any Prime Minister making such forthright approach. He said, we are the largest democracy, we have 18% of the population, we have hundreds of languages, many religions, and our ideology has always led for the welfare of the society. We have always contributed to the world good, and that is also the Vasudhaiva Kutumbakam is our approach, and we have been contributing. He said, Indian soldiers have taken part in 50 peacekeeping operations. Maximum soldiers, they have lost their life. Every Indian is contributing its role. And he said India's contribution, 2nd of October is now International Non-Violence Day, 21st of June is Yoga Day, and like in the disaster management, International Solar Alliance, India has been contributing for the welfare of humanity, but unfortunately, nothing is happening in favor of India. So I think it was a very clear message that the reforms must take right now, and that means restructuring of the United Nations Security Council, where India must get a place. He said, although we are now for 2 years, we will be a non-permanent member of the United Nations, we will still continue to play our role, which we are playing today. We are now helping 150 countries in the pharma sector. And he also assured the world, particularly our neighbors and all developing countries, that we are the largest producer of vaccine. And we ensure that whenever a vaccine production takes place, we will help everybody. And our phase 3 vaccine trial is now at a very critical stage. So therefore, we will continue to play our positive role for the welfare of humanity, for the good of global society.
Thank you, sir.
Thank you.
You were listening to a discussion on Prime Minister's Mann Ki Baat. The participants were Ashok Tandon, political analyst, and AIR correspondent Renu Kataria. This program was produced and presented by the News Services Division of All India Radio. You can listen to it on our mobile app News on AIR. This program is also available on our website newsonair.com. You may email your opinion about this program at airnsdtalks@gmail.com.